Dear travelers, on this quiet, rainy night, please stop and listen to my story. Close your eyes and relax, and you will fall asleep slowly. Photographs in the attic. A relaxing sleep story. ASMR bedtime story. It had been 13 years since I'd stepped foot inside that house. Not since the night I left in a storm, my breath fogging the windshield as I swore I'd never return. But here I was, back again. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something else, memory, maybe. Funny how homes don't age the same way people do. They just sink into themselves. I stood in the entryway for what felt like an hour, fingers trailing across the faded wallpaper. My mother had passed 3 days before. Heart failure. Peaceful, the nurse said. Alone. The funeral had been small. Just me, 2 neighbors who barely remembered her name, and a priest who spoke more about heaven than her life. There were no eulogies, no slideshow of memories, just a light rain and the sound of dirt hitting the casket like distant applause. Dear listener, have you ever buried someone and realized you didn't know half their story? That was me. That day, I came back not for closure, but for the keys. The house was mine now. Not a blessing, not a curse. Just mine. I spent the first night on the couch, fully clothed, a half-empty bottle of scotch on the floor. The silence was loud. Not even the walls creaked. In the morning, I started the long, slow task of going through her things. Her room was just as she'd left it, framed photo of us on the nightstand, lace curtains still yellowed by sun and time. In the hallway closet, a pile of boxes marked Christmas, Dad's books, garage stuff, don't toss. I ignored them. My fingers paused on something else entirely, an old pull string hanging from the ceiling. The attic door. God, I hadn't been up there since I was maybe 10. Back when Dad was still around. You know that feeling? Friend, when you find something you forgot existed, and suddenly your whole chest aches with questions. That's what the attic did to me. I grabbed the string and pulled. Dust rained down like powdered memory. The wooden ladder unfolded with a creak so human I almost apologized to it. I stood there, hand on the rung, heart thudding slow and strange. It was just an attic. And yet, I knew something was waiting. Not something scary, just something long forgotten. Something that remembered me even if I didn't remember it. And so, dear friend, I climbed, one step, then another. Into the dark, into the dust, into the past. The attic was exactly how I remembered it, and nothing like I remembered it. You ever feel that way, my friend? Like your memories were drawn in pastel, and then real life shows up in grainy charcoal? The light bulb still dangled from the middle beam, and when I pulled the chain, it flickered like it was unsure whether it wanted to work for me. It gave in. Kind of. The boxes were stacked neatly, labeled in my mother's neat handwriting. A few toys, a wedding dress in yellowing plastic, old photo albums. Nothing unusual, nothing I hadn't expected, until the small chest of drawers in the far corner. It wasn't the chest itself that caught my eye. It was the way it sat, slightly turned, as if someone had opened it in haste and then forgot to turn it back straight. There were no labels, no stickers, just 3 simple drawers. I bent down, brushed the dust from the handles, and pulled open the top drawer. Empty. The second one had a few sewing patterns, a folded scarf, and an empty candy tin that still smelled faintly like peppermint. But it was the bottom drawer, the heaviest one, that changed everything. My fingers hesitated. Isn't that strange? How sometimes we know something is about to change, and yet we keep going anyway. I opened it. Inside was a bundle of letters, tied neatly with a faded blue ribbon. Some were yellowed with age. Some looked newer. All were addressed the same way, to someone named Michael. Not me. My name is Daniel. And I swear to you, I'd never heard of a Michael in her life. Not once. Not in all my 39 years. I sat down right there on the floor. The attic was warm, but I felt cold in my chest. Like my heart had stepped into a draft that didn't belong to this house. The first letter was dated August 1978, before I was born. My mother's handwriting curled like smoke across the page. "Dear Michael," it began, "I dreamed about you again. You were wearing that terrible sweater, the one you swore was lucky. I missed the way you laughed at my cooking and told me the toast was perfectly burnt." Toast? She always made me toast. Burned. Just a little. Said that was how it tasted best. And I believed her. Dear listener, do you know how it feels to realize someone's affection for you was recycled? Passed down? Like a family recipe that didn't originate in your branch of the tree? I read another letter, and another. They spanned years, through the early 80s, into the 90s, even a few from the early 2000s, all signed, "Forever, Lila." Not Mom, not Love, your friend, not yours truly, just forever. To Michael, there was no address, no last name, just a secret, neatly tied with ribbon and sealed in time. I sat in that attic until the light bulb finally gave up on me, left me alone with the dust, the dark, and questions too loud to sleep through. What kind of love lives only in letters? What kind of woman was my mother before she was my mother? And who the hell was Michael? When I went downstairs, I carried the letters with me, cradled them like they might disappear if I blinked too long. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I knew this. My mother had a story she never told me, and maybe it was time I heard it. You know that feeling when you start something you can't stop. Like opening a door you didn't even know was locked until it's wide open? That's what reading those letters became for me. Not a choice. Not even a curiosity. It was a compulsion. I made a cup of tea that night, just how she used to drink it. Weak, almost watery, with a squeeze of lemon, I never understood her taste, but I wanted to feel close to her. Or at least, close to the version of her I thought I knew. I laid the letters out on the kitchen table. Chronological order. I wanted structure. I needed something to make sense. The earliest letters were written when she was barely 20. They were playful, messy, in a way that felt warm, like a girl still trying to make her handwriting look like her teacher's. And in every single one, Michael, "You would have loved the rain today," she wrote in one. "I stood in it without my umbrella, just to remember what it felt like with you." She never stood in the rain, not once that I could remember. Mom hated getting her shoes wet. She'd scold me if I left puddles on the floor. But here she was, in ink, letting herself get drenched. For someone I didn't know, I told my mother, "You're gone." She didn't say anything, just looked away and said, "Some loves don't last, Lila. Let it be." But I can't. Michael, I can't. That one stayed with me. Some loves don't last. I read that sentence a dozen times. Because it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about me. My parents' marriage wasn't exactly a fairy tale, sure. But it wasn't terrible either. They did all the things couples do. Vacations, dinner parties, side glances during boring conversations. But now, with these letters, I started to question everything. Was my father second place? Was I? It's a strange thing, realizing the people who raised you had entire lives before you existed. Lives with laughter you weren't around to hear. Pain you weren't born to comfort. Secrets they never meant to share. I found one letter, written the year I turned 10. It was the first time she mentioned a child. "Michael, Daniel turned 10 today. He looks nothing like you. And yet, when he asked me why the sky was blue, you came to mind. You always had the best answers." That stopped me cold. Why would she mention him in a letter like that? Was she comparing me to him? Wishing Michael was the one to answer that question? Was I just a reminder of someone she'd lost? I sat back in my chair, staring at the stack. There were so many, more than I could finish in one night. But I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop, because with every word, I was piecing together a puzzle. A version of her that had been hidden behind casseroles and Christmas cards. Behind bedtime stories and perfectly wrapped birthday presents. She wasn't just my mom anymore. She was Lila, a woman who loved once, deeply, and never quite let go. One of the last letters in the stack that night was dated just a few years ago. Before she passed, I still write. Even though I know you'll never read these, it comforts me. In a world full of noise, this feels like the one place I can still whisper and know it's safe. That line nearly broke me. Whisper and know it's safe. How many of us ever really get that? And yet she had it with him. Even if he was gone, I didn't know if Michael was alive. Or if he ever got a single letter. I didn't know if he knew about me. Or if she ever told him he had a son, even though I wasn't his. I went to bed that night with pages dancing in my mind. Her voice echoing through the dark like a lullaby in a language I only now understood. Have you ever had to meet someone all over again? After they're already gone? It's a strange kind of grief. Not losing them, but realizing they were never fully yours to begin with. And yet, despite everything, I wasn't angry. Just hollow. Like the letters had carved out something soft inside me. Something I hadn't noticed was even there. The next morning, I sat on the porch with a letter in hand, still unopened. The air was cool, damp from last night's rain, and the scent of lavender drifted in from the garden beds she used to tend. You know, my friend, it's strange how places can remember people even better than photographs. The garden had her in it, in the color of the roses, in the way the mint pushed stubbornly through the cracks in the bricks. She always said, "Life finds a way." I used to think she meant it as optimism. Now I wondered if it was regret. I held the envelope like it might burn me. It was thicker than the others, more recent, the handwriting shakier. It was addressed simply, Michael, July. Not a year, just July. Like she didn't need to be exact. I opened it slowly. Inside, she wrote, "Michael, I dreamed about you last night. We were sitting on the old bench under the sycamore tree, the one that creaked every time you shifted. You still had that ridiculous hat on, and you were reading poetry, Rilke, I think. I was happy, but I woke up crying." I paused. The bench, the sycamore, that was here. Our backyard. Did they sit there together once? Or had she rebuilt her memories in the image of our home? Was my world built on hers? Or was hers built around what could never be? She continued, "Daniel is grown now. He's strong, like his father. But sometimes he says things that remind me of you, and I wonder if you'd see it too. Would you laugh the way you used to? Would you have taught him to ride a bike? You were always better with balance than I was." That line hit me like a wave. She'd never told me that. About the bike. About the balance. She made me believe I figured it out on my own. Fell 100 times. Stood up 100 more. But maybe she was thinking of someone else the whole time. "You never came back," she wrote, "and I never stopped setting a place for you. Not at the table, but in my thoughts. Always in the quiet moments. When Dan naps, when the rain falls, when the leaves turn." I closed the letter slowly, carefully, as though she might still feel it. Dear listener, have you ever realized someone's grief was a companion they never let go of? That it lived beside you quietly, in the soft edges of the everyday? I hadn't. Not until now. I wandered into the garden, the letter still in my hand. There was the bench old, wooden, worn, just like in her letter. I sat there and tried to imagine them, young, hopeful, her in a summer dress, him with that ridiculous hat. Had they made promises under this tree? Had she broken them? Or did life just get in the way, like it always does? I think about that sometimes, dear friend. How love doesn't always fade. Sometimes it just shifts. Becomes quieter, wider, deeper, but buried. And when it surfaces, like a drawer that won't stay closed, you find yourself staring at someone you thought you knew, and realizing you only knew a part. The garden grew quiet. The wind settled. A robin perched on the fence post watching me. She would have said it was a sign. She believed in things like that. Maybe I do now, too. That night, I placed that letter in a separate envelope, not with the rest. This one felt different, more like a goodbye, or maybe a beginning. I didn't sleep easily. I kept thinking, what would I say to Michael if I ever found him? Would I want to? Would he want to see me? Would he even know I exist? And if he didn't, would I tell him? The next morning, I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, just looking around. It's funny how silence fills a room after someone's gone. Not just the absence of sound, but the absence of breath, of perfume, of those little hums she used to make when brushing her hair. You ever notice that, my friend? How silence after loss feels heavier than before, like it has weight. I sat down at her dresser, pulled open the top drawer carefully now. There were more letters tucked underneath a pile of silk scarves. These were older, yellowed around the edges, and one was marked 1993. That was the year Daniel was born. My hand trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, her words spilled out like a river already mid-flow. Michael, she wrote, sometimes I imagine you walking past our window, pausing, looking in, not knowing that your son is in here, asleep in a crib. He has your ears. I swear it. I had to stop reading for a second. Not because I was angry, but because she never told me she thought Daniel looked like someone else. She used to say he had my mother's nose, or my stubbornness. Was that a cover? Or had she just learned to weave the lie so tightly that she believed it too? Daniel cries when the lights go out, she continued. He calms when I sing that lullaby you loved, the one from the cabin trip. Do you remember? I whispered it to you once when we were hiding from the thunder, and now I whisper it to him. I closed my eyes. I'd heard her sing that song many times, softly, sweetly, but I thought it was ours. Was anything truly ours? I put the letter down, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. It groaned with age, like it remembered. Later that day, I drove into town. I had no plan, no destination, just a heart full of questions I didn't know how to ask. I ended up at the library, that old brick building where she used to volunteer on Thursdays. The same place we used to meet before date nights in our early years. I spoke to Margaret, the librarian who had known her for decades. Did Evelyn ever talk about someone named Michael? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. She blinked, paused, then smiled a little, wistfully. She used to get postcards from someone by that name. But that was before you two married, I think. From Paris once, and from Florence. She'd show me the stamps. I felt my stomach knot. She kept them? I don't know, Margaret said softly, but she always smiled when she read them. A faraway kind of smile. A faraway kind of smile. That described Evelyn perfectly. She never talked about those places with me. We traveled, sure, but it was always domestic, cozy, contained, safe. I thought she liked that. Now I wonder if it was compromise. On the drive home, I kept replaying everything. The letters, the lullaby, the postcards. Was I a substitute for a dream that never happened? Or was I the second chapter she chose to write? My dear friend, you ever ask yourself that? Whether you were someone's plan A or just the best version of plan B? That night, I couldn't bring myself to open another letter. Instead, I sat by the window with a glass of wine and watched the stars blink in and out behind the clouds. Evelyn used to say stars are like memories always there, even when you can't see them. I liked that thought, even if I didn't understand all her memories anymore. But the hardest part, the part that really wrapped around me and wouldn't let go, was realizing that maybe I'd never truly know the woman I loved. Maybe she had a world inside her, a secret garden I never walked through. And now I was wandering it alone, trying to follow her footprints. There's something surreal about seeing your life from the outside. Like when you walk past a cafe window and catch your reflection mid-thought, just enough to wonder who that tired person is looking back at you. That's how I felt the day Michael came. Yes, that Michael. I had almost convinced myself he was just a ghost in the ink. A name from letters never meant for me. But then, on an ordinary Wednesday morning, there was a knock on the door, and there he stood. Tall, weathered, polite. His hair had more gray than I imagined. But his eyes, they held something familiar. A softness I had seen before. Maybe in a photo I didn't remember taking. "Mr. Thomas?" he asked. Even his voice was careful, measured. "That's me," I said, holding the door but not yet stepping aside. "Can I help you?" He hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. "I received this in the mail," he said. "From Evelyn. It had your address on the return label." My heart thudded. She had written to him recently, after she left me. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. Though every muscle in my body wanted to run, he didn't look like a man with bad intentions. Just tired. Like grief had wrung him out, in the same way it had me. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. He set the envelope down between us. I didn't touch it. Neither did he. Instead, we talked. About Evelyn. About her time in Italy. About a music festival in 1985, where she first read his poetry aloud. Poetry he'd written on napkins and cigarette papers. I didn't know she kept any of that, he said, almost embarrassed. But she did. Every word. My chest tightened. I thought I knew everything about her, I admitted. But maybe I only knew the parts she gave me. He nodded slowly. She was like that. Gentle, but guarded. Then he said something that hit me like cold water on bare skin. She wrote me to say goodbye. I looked at him, startled. She knew she was sick? He shook his head. It wasn't like that. She said she was closing chapters. That she was trying to put away parts of her heart. She wanted me to know she didn't regret anything, but that she was choosing to stay with you. I blinked hard. She chose me? He gave a small, almost broken smile. She did. Again and again. Even though we had history, even though I thought maybe she told me that her real life was with you. Silence sat with us for a while, then he stood. "I won't take more of your time," he said. Before he left, he reached into his coat pocket again. This time, He handed me a photograph. It was of Evelyn, much younger, laughing with her head thrown back, standing barefoot on a cobblestone street. Michael was next to her, holding a camera with one hand, her waist with the other. They looked free, untamed. "She gave me this," he said, "but I think you should have it." I took it, fingers trembling, and as the door closed behind him, I sat back down. The house was quiet again, but something had shifted. She had loved him, but she had loved me too, in a quieter, steadier way. The way rivers love the land they shape, and I was starting to realize that love doesn't have to be first to be true, or wild to be deep. Sometimes, love is what stays. My friend, if you've ever wondered whether you were someone's second choice, remember this: sometimes it's the second choice that becomes the forever home. There's something about paper that always felt fragile to me. Maybe it's the way it folds in your hand, how a single drop of water can smudge a word into silence. Or maybe it's because every letter, every photograph, every handwritten note feels like it's just waiting for fire. And that's exactly where I found myself, in the garage, kneeling beside an old tin box, lid flung open like a wound, and inside more letters, not ones addressed to Michael, not ones signed with hearts or poetry, number. These were different, scraps of Evelyn's thoughts to no one, maybe to herself, maybe to a version of her life that never existed. Each one dated, each folded carefully. Some had coffee stains, others tear marks. One even smelled faintly like her perfume, that soft lavender scent she always dabbed behind her ears. God, I hadn't smelled that in months. It made my throat tighten. My friend, have you ever read something so personal you feel like an intruder in your own home? That's how these letters felt. One was about a walk we took on our second anniversary, when I bought her the wrong flowers and she smiled anyway. She wrote that moment meant more to her than any perfect bouquet. Said it was the first time she realized I was imperfect and perfectly hers. Another was about our first fight. She described how I paced in the living room like a caged animal, and how she thought I might walk out. She wrote that when I didn't, she sat in the bathroom and cried out of relief. There were letters about dreams she never chased, books she never wrote, a child she once imagined holding. Not ours, just a child. She had fears I never knew, joys I had forgotten, a whole world of thoughts stacked in the dark corners of our house, like dust waiting to rise. I didn't read them all, not right away. Some stayed folded, tied in a ribbon, because I needed time. Because love, even after death, has its own pacing. But there was one letter that didn't have a date, didn't even have a salutation. It simply read, "You've loved me more gently than I ever asked for, and I hope that when I go, you won't hold the silence against me. I'm trying to learn how to leave with grace. I don't want you to remember me in pieces." I stared at it for a long time. She knew, in her own quiet way, she had prepared her goodbye. I folded it back, held it to my chest, and that's when I did something I never thought I would. I took the photograph Michael had given me, the one of her laughing on that cobblestone street, and I burned it. Not in anger, not in jealousy, but in release, because some ghosts need fire to let go, and some memories are meant to live in the warmth behind your ribs, not the cold frame of your mind. The flame flickered, curled her edges. Then she was smoke. Have you ever watched a moment disappear, my friend? There's something holy about it, painful and holy. And in that ash, I didn't lose her. I just let her be whole again, not split between past lovers or dusty drawers, but entirely Evelyn. There was a Sunday, soft light, muted sky, the kind of quiet that seeps into your skin and makes you forget what time is. I sat by the window in my living room, still hard to stop calling it ours, and the window was open just a crack, letting in that late spring breeze. You know the kind, my friend? It carries the smell of cut grass and distant rain, and something else, something that doesn't quite have a name. That day, I swear to you, I heard Evelyn, not in the obvious ghost story kind of way, but in the sigh of the curtains, the hush of the leaves, as if her voice had threaded itself into the wind, and she said nothing really, just was there, like she wanted to remind me she hadn't disappeared. Not entirely. Now I know how that sounds. But after months of digging through drawers, finding letters that were never meant for me, and watching our old photographs curl into ash, you begin to accept the strange language of memory. I had made a decision by then, to write back, not to Evelyn, but to myself. Dear God, have you ever tried writing a letter to yourself and not lied once? It's like standing in front of a mirror after a long night. When the mascara has run, when the tie is loosened, when you look less like a person and more like the truth. I started small, a page, then 3. Then suddenly, I was keeping a journal, the way Evelyn once did. Maybe I was hoping she'd read them from wherever she went. Or maybe I was trying to find the version of myself that she wrote about, the one who loved gently, who listened, who stayed. I walked down to the lake one afternoon, that same bench we sat on that winter we were snowed in. I brought a few of the letters with me, one of hers, one of mine, and I sat there, just breathing, letting the water speak, letting the ducks ignore me, like they always did. And I thought about the last song we ever danced to, our anniversary, a quiet one. We had played that old tune, you know it, the one that sounds like heartbreak wrapped in velvet. She danced with her cheek on my shoulder, and we didn't talk. Didn't need to. I think we both knew that was the last time. Funny how your heart knows things before your mouth ever catches up. So there I was on that bench, with 2 letters and a wind that knew her name. And I did something strange. I read hers out loud, to the lake, to no one, to Evelyn. And when I finished, I folded mine and left it under the bench. Call me silly, but maybe someone would find it. Maybe a stranger would read it and feel less alone. Maybe Evelyn would find it, somehow. Because love doesn't vanish, my friend. It changes shape. It becomes wind, or letters, or the quiet between 2 people who once meant the world to each other. And you, dear listener, if you've ever lost someone, and you're still listening now, maybe you've heard your own version of Evelyn in the Breeze. And if not, open the window just a little, and wait. I woke up to silence that morning, the kind that sits heavy on your chest when you wake up alone and you realize how long it's been since you've shared the bed with someone. Do you know that feeling? It's like the weight of absence. It's there in every breath, every step you take in the house, and you start hearing things you didn't notice before. The hum of the refrigerator, the way the faucet drips in the bathroom, little things that used to be part of the background, now they're all you hear. I'm not one for regrets, at least not openly. But that morning, I felt the gap between us like a door that wouldn't close. I sat in the kitchen, making coffee, fingers trembling slightly as I poured the water. I hadn't cried in months, but that morning, I could feel the tears behind my eyes, waiting for permission to spill. And I couldn't give them that permission. Not yet. So I grabbed a cup, and instead of letting the silence drag me under, I filled the air with noise. Music. The old kind. The one Evelyn used to play when we cooked together. It started soft, almost apologetically, the way a song sneaks in when you're not paying attention. But before I knew it, I was humming along, mouthing the words I had long forgotten, and for a moment, I could have sworn I heard her voice in the chorus. Maybe you think I'm losing it. Maybe you'd tell me to move on, to stop looking for pieces of her in every shadow. But, my friend, how can you move on when everything feels like it's still here? I made my coffee, sipped it slowly, and watched the sun climb higher in the sky. And for that brief, fleeting moment, I was just living. Isn't that all we can ask for after love leaves? Just to keep breathing, to keep moving forward. Even when the path feels empty, I don't know how long I sat there, lost in my thoughts. But eventually, I put the cup down and stood up. It was time to do something. Anything. I grabbed my coat, and before I could second-guess myself, I stepped outside. The world wasn't waiting for me, but I was done waiting for it to make sense. And as I walked down the street, with the wind tugging at my collar, I felt something stir in my chest. A little hope, maybe? Or just the acknowledgement that, perhaps, it wasn't the end of the story after all. If you've ever been lost like this, you know what I mean. You just need one tiny sign to remind you that you're still here. And in that moment, it was the sound of my footsteps against the sidewalk. It was a whisper of something I couldn't quite name, but I think it was the beginning of finding myself again. Now, tell me, my friend, have you ever had that moment? The one where you realize the road ahead isn't as empty as it feels? Maybe you're just waiting for the right step to take. The walk didn't take long, but it was enough to shake the fog from my head. I didn't have a destination. I wasn't sure if I even wanted one. I just needed the air, the movement, the feeling that I was more than just someone waiting for time to pass. As I walked, I found myself thinking back to that day, the day she left. It was one of those days that felt like it could have gone any way, but I didn't know it was the last time I'd see her smile. She said goodbye so quietly, like it wasn't a big deal, like it wasn't the end of everything we had. I think that's the hardest part. When you're left behind, you don't always get closure. You don't get to ask all the questions that keep you up at night. What happened? Why couldn't we fix it? And were we ever really happy? I know, I'm being dramatic, but haven't you ever felt that way too? Like there's a hole in the middle of your chest, and you can't find anything to fill it. By the time I got home, I was ready to start something new. A new chapter, or at least, a new day. But when I opened the door, I was met with the silence again. The kind that swallows everything. I made my way to the bedroom, and as I reached for the closet, something caught my eye. There, on the floor beside the dresser, was a small stack of papers. I bent down to pick them up, expecting them to be something of no real significance. But when I turned them over, I saw her handwriting. Letters. I didn't recognize the envelope, but the handwriting was unmistakable. I felt a chill run through me. I didn't want to read them. I shouldn't have read them, but the pull was too strong. And so I sat down on the bed, and I opened the first letter. My hands were shaking, my breath shallow. Each word I read felt like it was pulling me deeper into something I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But my curiosity wouldn't let me stop. The first letter wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't even from me. It was from someone I didn't know. A name I didn't recognize. A story I had no part in. I kept reading, and then another letter, and another. With each letter, I could feel the weight of something I hadn't even seen coming. A life, a love that wasn't mine. She had kept it hidden. This whole side of her life. This person who had been a part of her, long before I ever came into the picture. And the letters, they weren't just letters. They were pieces of a past I didn't know existed. Did she ever plan to tell me? Had I been so blind, so caught up in my own needs, that I never saw the signs? My heart pounded in my chest. I felt sick, angry, lost. But mostly, I felt betrayed. You're probably thinking, why didn't you just stop reading? But I couldn't. I had to know. What was she hiding? Why hadn't she told me? The last letter was the hardest to read. It was the one that spoke of love, of things unsaid, of a connection that still lingered, even though it was clear she'd moved on. I folded the letter, suddenly unable to breathe. I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at the paper in my hands. I guess the hardest thing is realizing that sometimes people don't share their whole selves with you. They keep parts locked away, hidden in places you can't reach, no matter how much you try. Have you ever had something like this happen to you? Something you weren't prepared for? I'd love to know what you think, what you'd do if you were in my shoes. The silence around me felt different now, thicker somehow. I wasn't sure what to do with all the information I had just uncovered. Her letters, her hidden past, the words of a love she never shared with me. It was as if I had stumbled upon a secret she never meant for me to find. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the letters in my hands. But the more I thought about it, the more questions piled up. Why didn't she tell me? Why keep this part of her life locked away in a drawer, hidden from view? Was I not enough? Was there something missing between us that I hadn't seen? It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes you can feel like you know everything about someone, and then something like this comes along and shatters that illusion. You think you've seen every part of them, only to realize there's a whole other side of them you never even knew existed. I was angry at first, angry at her for keeping it from me, angry that I had to find out this way. But as I thought more about it, I couldn't help but wonder if maybe I wasn't so different. Hadn't I kept parts of myself hidden from her too? Hadn't I kept some things in the dark? Things I was afraid to share because I was scared of what she might think? It felt like a double-edged sword. I didn't want to feel like a fool, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel that I was one. I should have known, should have seen the signs, but I didn't. And now here I was, holding these letters, looking at the raw truth of who she was, and feeling like a stranger to her all over again. I stood up slowly, the letters still in my hands. It felt heavy, so heavy that I didn't know what to do with it. I could confront her, I could demand answers, but deep down, I knew I wasn't ready. Not yet. Not until I understood why I felt so betrayed. I walked over to the window, looking out at the street below, my mind racing. It was like there was a whole new world unfolding before me, one I had no place in, no way of understanding. And yet, here I was, forced to come to terms with it. I thought about her. I thought about us. Had she ever really been mine, or had she always been someone else's? I didn't know, and that was the worst part, not knowing. After a while, I sat down again, placing the letters back in the drawer. It felt like the right thing to do, but also like the hardest. How could I just tuck them away like nothing had changed? How could I pretend that everything was still the same? But what else was I supposed to do? What else was left to do but move forward? Maybe it was time to let go of the past, even if it was still holding on to me. Maybe I needed to accept that there were things about her, about us, that I would never understand. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this life isn't always about having all the answers. Sometimes it's about learning to live with the questions. And for now, that was enough. Does this all sound familiar to you, my friend? Have you ever been in a place where everything you thought you knew just fell apart? Where you had to question everything you thought was real? It's a tough place to be, but I guess it's part of the process. We all go through it. We all have to figure out how to keep going, even when things don't make sense. It's been a few weeks now, and the quiet still lingers. The kind of quiet that creeps into your life after something changes, when you realize that things will never be the same. And honestly, I'm still not sure what to make of it all. I haven't spoken to her, not really. The phone calls are short, the texts polite, but distant. It's like we've both retreated into our corners, waiting for something. Maybe for time to heal, whatever it is that's broken between us. I wish I could say that I've figured it all out, that I've found peace with the letters, with the secrets she kept hidden, but I haven't. Not yet, and maybe I never will. There are days when I look back at everything we shared, and it feels like it was all just a dream. Like the love we had was never really real. But then there are other days, moments, when I remember her laughter, the way her hand fit perfectly in mine, the way she would look at me like I was the only person in the room. Those moments are still there, still real. But it's hard to reconcile those memories with the new reality. The reality where I know she kept pieces of herself from me, and not just pieces, but entire chapters of her life. I can't help but wonder, what if the love we had was just one chapter, one part of the story? What if there's so much more to her that I'll never know? The more I think about it, the more I realize how much I still don't understand. But I guess that's life, right? We never really have all the answers. We just keep moving forward, step by step, even when we're not sure where we're headed. And it's hard. It's hard to keep moving when you feel like a part of you is missing, when you're not sure what to hold on to anymore. But I'm trying to let go of the past, to stop carrying it around with me like a heavy weight. I'm trying to find my own peace, even if it's just a little bit at a time. I guess that's all any of us can do, isn't it? We can't change what's happened. We can't undo the mistakes, the secrets, the things left unsaid. All we can do is keep moving forward. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find our way back to something real again. Have you ever felt this way, my friend? Like you're carrying a weight, but you're not sure how to let go of it? Or maybe you've been in a place where you had to rebuild after everything fell apart. It's not easy, but it's possible. One day at a time. It's funny how life works. Just when you think you have everything figured out, it has a way of throwing something unexpected your way. And that's where I am now. At a crossroads, I guess. I'm not sure how to move forward, but somehow I know that I must. I've started to piece my life back together, little by little. It's not easy, and some days feel harder than others, but I'm getting there. I've started doing things for myself, things I forgot how to do when I was so wrapped up in someone else. It's small, like drinking coffee on the porch in the mornings, or going for long walks by myself. Just breathing, you know? The days feel quieter now, but not in a bad way. It's more of a stillness, a space where I can just be. I'm learning to embrace it, to find comfort in the quiet instead of the noise I used to think I needed. And then, of course, there are moments where I wonder what she's doing, what she's feeling, if she's happy, if she's found peace. There's a part of me that wants to reach out, to ask, but I know I can't. Not yet. Not until I've figured out who I am without her. I don't think I'm quite ready for that, and maybe I never will be. But I do know that I've learned a lot over the past few weeks about love, about loss, and about myself. It's been a slow journey, but I'm learning how to move forward, not because I want to forget her, but because I need to remember who I am without her. And isn't that the real challenge? Not moving on, but learning to stand on your own again? I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer. And for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm beginning to breathe again. It's strange, though, because even as I move forward, there are moments when the past catches up to me. When I find myself thinking about those letters, the ones she left behind, I wonder if she ever intended for me to find them. Maybe they were just things she never got around to hiding, or maybe she wanted me to see them all along. I'll never know for sure, but I do know this. Those letters, those words she wrote, they're a part of me now. A part of the story that shaped who I am. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we're all just a collection of stories, good and bad, things we've learned, things we wish we could forget. But in the end, those stories are ours to carry. They don't define us, but they shape us. Have you ever felt like that, my friend? Like you're carrying pieces of a story that aren't entirely your own, but you still have to live with them? Maybe they're not bad stories, but they're not easy to forget either. Anyway, I'm taking things one step at a time. I'm not rushing forward. I'm not rushing back. I'm just here, and that's enough for now. Have you ever noticed how a single sound can take you back in time? The smallest trigger, a song, a smell, even the rustle of leaves in the wind, and suddenly, you're back in that moment. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, about the way things echo in our lives, and how certain memories never really leave us. I found myself driving through the old part of town last week. It wasn't something I planned. I just ended up there as if my hands were guiding me on their own. And there it was, the old cafe where we used to sit, the one with the cracked windows and the faded sign. It hasn't changed much, but I swear the air felt different. Like time had stopped when we were there, like the walls remembered us. I sat in the car for a while, just staring at it. I didn't go inside. I wasn't ready for that. But I remember the first time we went there. It wasn't anything fancy. Just a small table by the window, a hot cup of coffee between us. We used to talk for hours. About everything and nothing. It felt like we could talk forever, that we had all the time in the world. I remember laughing so hard that day, the kind of laugh that makes your stomach hurt, but you don't mind. We laughed about something silly, probably something I don't even remember now. But the sound of our laughter, the way it felt to be with her, that's what stuck with me. The way we didn't need anything but each other. But I guess that's the way it goes, isn't it? The moments you think will last forever are often the ones that slip through your fingers the quickest. You don't realize it until it's too late, until you're left with only the echoes of what was once there. I wonder sometimes if she remembers those days. If she feels the same way about them that I do. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, those moments are mine now. And while they hurt sometimes, they also remind me of who I used to be. The person I was before everything changed. But here's the thing. I'm learning not to chase the past. I used to think that if I could just hold on, if I could just recreate those moments, everything would go back to how it was. But I'm starting to understand that the past is gone, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it's supposed to be that way, because the future, well, it's still unwritten, and I don't know what it holds. But I do know that I'm not the same person I was back then. I've changed. And in a way, that's a good thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is this: sometimes the past lingers like a melody playing in the background of our lives. But we can't let it drown out the present. We can't let it control us, because there's so much more to life than what came before. There's a whole world waiting for us to explore, to live, to love. Maybe you know what I mean, my friend. Maybe you've been there, stuck in the echoes of yesterday, wondering if you'll ever be able to move on. But here's the thing: you can. You will. And when you're ready, you'll look back and you'll see how far you've come. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon enough, you'll see. Have you ever caught yourself in a conversation with someone who isn't really there? Not out loud, not in any way that someone could hear, but in your head. A quiet, one-sided exchange that doesn't need words, where the thoughts and feelings just flood in, filling the space around you. I've had more of those lately. More moments where I sit quietly in a room, and the silence isn't so silent. There's a constant hum in my mind, whispers of things unsaid, things I wish I could have said, but now it's too late. Sometimes I wonder, do you still think of me? Not in the way you used to, of course. Things have changed. But do you ever catch yourself remembering? Remembering the little things, the things no one else would notice. Like the way I always took my coffee too hot, or how we'd both laugh at the same stupid joke, even when no one else found it funny. It's strange. This thing called memory. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces, and every time you try to put it together, you realize that some parts are just gone. But there are other parts, the pieces you never forget, that stay with you quietly, reminding you of who you were, who we were. Sometimes I sit with those memories in the quiet, and I imagine what it would be like to see you again. Not for a reunion or some grand gesture, but just for a moment, just to see how we both turned out, to see if the space between us has gotten any smaller, or if it's grown even wider. I don't know why I keep thinking about this, about these silent conversations in my mind. Maybe it's because there's still something inside of me, a part of me that wishes I could go back to that time before everything started to unravel, before the words were left unspoken, before the silences became too loud. But that's not how life works, is it? You can't go back. No matter how much you want to, you can only move forward. And yet, there's still that pull, that gentle tug in my heart, telling me to hold on to those memories, even as I try to let go. I don't know where we'll end up, or if we'll ever cross paths again, but I do know this: whatever happens, the conversations in my mind will always be there. They might be one-sided, but they're mine, and maybe that's enough. Sometimes, my friend, you have to talk to yourself, even if no one else is listening. Sometimes the quiet conversations are the most honest ones. They're the ones that allow you to process the things you couldn't say out loud, to make peace with the past, and to find a little comfort in the silence. Maybe, just maybe, you've had those silent conversations too, where the words are unspoken, but the feelings are so loud, you can't help but hear them. And maybe, just maybe, you're learning to listen to the voice inside that knows you better than anyone else ever could. So, as you sit with those thoughts, remember this: you're not alone in the silence. We all have our own conversations, our own quiet moments of reflection. Have you ever said goodbye, but felt like you never really left? You know that feeling? Like part of you stays behind, anchored to the place or the person, long after the words are spoken. It's almost like a ghost, a shadow of a goodbye that lingers in the air. You walk away, but something inside you stays. I remember the moment you left. I remember how it felt like time stopped, just for a second, as if the world held its breath. We didn't even say much, just those few words, soft and final. Goodbye, and then you were gone. It was a strange kind of finality. No shouting, no tears, just a quiet separation. But even in the silence, it felt like everything was crashing, like the foundation of everything we built together was shaking, and I didn't know how to keep it from crumbling. For days after, I couldn't escape the echo of your absence. It wasn't loud, not in the way you might expect. It wasn't a clamor or a noise that you could ignore. It was the silence. The quiet was deafening. And in that quiet, I found myself replaying every moment, every word, every laugh, every touch. The strange thing about silences is that they're never truly silent, are they? They carry with them the weight of what's unsaid, of all the things left behind. You don't even have to speak, and the silence will still tell you everything. Everything you were too afraid to say, everything you wish you could take back, everything that never had a chance to be said at all. Sometimes, I wonder, did you feel it too? Did you feel the echo of goodbye when you walked away? Or was it just me holding on to something I couldn't let go of? I don't know. Maybe we're both just echoes now, fading into the distance, our voices lost in the space between us. I've thought about it more than I should, about that moment, about the goodbye. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that goodbye doesn't really end. It keeps going, keeps echoing, until it eventually fades into something softer, something gentler, something like peace. Maybe that's what goodbye is supposed to be. Not a loud crash, not a dramatic moment, but a soft, fading echo that reminds you of what was, but doesn't leave you trapped in the past. Maybe that's what I need to learn. To let the echoes fade, to let them be part of me without holding me back. It's hard though, isn't it? To let go of something that meant so much, even when you know it's time. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how hard you try, it slips through your fingers. But maybe that's just life, learning to hold on to what you can and letting the rest go, even if it echoes in your heart for a while. I wonder, dear friend, do you ever feel the echo of something you had to let go of? A memory, a relationship, a moment that slipped away before you were ready? It's okay, because we all have our own echoes. And in time, they'll fade into something softer, something we can carry with us without it hurting so much. So, as the echoes of goodbye drift away, remember this: the silence won't last forever. I never expected to find it. I had long since put the past behind me, or at least, I thought I had. But sometimes, life has a way of reminding you of things you thought were gone. I found it buried deep in the back of the drawer. A letter. A single, delicate envelope that had slipped between the cracks of time. You remember how it feels, don't you? That rush of emotions when something unexpected surfaces. A memory you thought was lost forever. It was like finding an old photograph, faded and worn, but with the power to bring everything back. I hesitated before I opened it. Was I ready? Did I really want to relive all of that? But curiosity has a way of pulling you in, doesn't it? And so I tore open the envelope, half afraid, half eager. The paper inside was yellowed with age, the handwriting familiar and yet foreign at the same time. It was from you, and as I read your words, I felt like I was right back there, in the quiet of those days we spent together. The laughter, the tears, the shared dreams. I could almost hear your voice again, soft and warm, like it was yesterday. But there was something different this time. Something that had been hidden beneath the surface all along. You had said things in this letter that you never told me before. Things you had kept to yourself. Words I didn't know I needed to hear, but now I could never forget. And suddenly, the weight of it all hit me. How many times had we both been afraid to say the things we needed to say? How many moments had we missed, simply because we didn't have the courage to speak? The letter wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the final piece of a puzzle I never knew I was trying to solve. I wish I had found this letter sooner. Maybe it would have changed everything. Maybe it would have saved us from the pain we both felt. But then again, maybe it was never meant to change anything. Maybe it was just meant to help me understand, to let me see the things I had missed in the noise of our lives. As I read the final words, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was enough. Enough to finally let go, to stop chasing something that no longer existed. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it away in a drawer once more. But this time, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel the sting of regret. Instead, there was a quiet peace. The kind of peace you only find when you truly understand something, when you can look back without wishing for something different. I knew then that it was time to move on. Not because I had to forget, but because I could carry the memories without being burdened by them. And maybe that's what we all need to learn. To let the past be a part of us without it controlling us. To find peace, not in forgetting, but in understanding. So, my dear friend, have you ever found a letter like that? Something that made you see the past in a new light? Something that gave you the closure you needed? It's a strange thing, isn't it? How one simple piece of paper can hold so much. But in the end, it's not the letter that matters. It's what you do with it. It's strange, isn't it? How the smallest things can hold so much weight. I didn't realize how tightly I had been holding on until I let go. Until I folded that letter and tucked it back in its envelope, releasing it and the memories along with it. But, my friend, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Not by a long shot. There were moments, even after that, when I would catch myself thinking of what could have been, or wondering if I had missed something. A moment, a word, a gesture that could have changed everything. You know the feeling, don't you? When you start replaying things over and over in your mind, chasing an answer you're never going to find. Have you ever been there? Stuck in a loop of what-ifs? But here's the thing, you have to let go. You have to learn to stop searching for answers that aren't meant to come. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen all at once. But slowly, you start to realize that holding on to the past only weighs you down. And letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to move forward with all the lessons learned, all the moments cherished, but no longer clinging to them. The funny thing is, when I finally made peace with everything, when I accepted that some things were never meant to be, and that others were always meant to be fleeting, I found something surprising. I found freedom, a sense of lightness, like the weight I had been carrying for so long was finally lifted. I wasn't sure I was ready for it, but it came anyway. And I think that's the beauty of it all. You never really know when or how it will happen, but one day, you just realize it's time to let go. Have you ever felt that, my friend? That moment when everything clicks into place, and you feel lighter, like you can finally breathe again? It's like waking up from a dream, slowly, but with clarity. And though the past will always be a part of you, it no longer controls you. It no longer defines you. You define yourself with each step forward. So, I moved on. Not in a dramatic, life-changing way, but in the quiet, everyday moments that make up a life. I started to find joy in the small things again. The sound of the rain tapping on the window. A song on the radio that made me smile. The simple comfort of a cup of coffee on a lazy morning. I had forgotten how to appreciate those things, but now they felt like treasures. And it wasn't just the small things either. I started to look at the future with hope again, without the shadow of the past looming over me. I wasn't afraid of moving forward anymore. Because, you see, the past is never really gone. It lives on in the way we carry it with us. In the lessons we learn, the people we meet, and the paths we choose. And I think that's the thing we all need to remember. Life is a journey of letting go, of embracing the unknown, of trusting that the future has something beautiful waiting for us. The past will always be there, but we don't have to be chained to it. So, my dear friend, if you're holding on to something that's been weighing you down, maybe it's time to let it go. Maybe it's time to move forward with grace, with peace, and with the knowledge that your story is still unfolding. You're not alone in this. We're all finding our way, one step at a time. And who knows? Maybe one day, we'll look back and realize that the letting go was the beginning of something beautiful. Good night, my friend. Take care, and let the future unfold.